Hi there, you've been linked to this video because you've claimed that Libertarian Socialism is an oxymoron.
And I have a feeling I'm about to complain that you are a regular moron.
It's understandable why you might take this position, because when these terms are used in mainstream political discourse, they are in fact conflicting.
It's the definitions of the words themselves that are conflicting. They are mutually exclusive down to the core. Libertarianism is an individualist philosophy. Socialism is a collectivist philosophy. They are completely incompatible.
However, Libertarian Socialists aren't using these terms in the same way that they're used in mainstream politics. Rather, we have our own definitions of libertarianism and socialism.
You don't say. Sorry, but you don't get to define words just any old way you want to. To do so is to argue in bad faith, and it's known as the equivocation fallacy.
When we say we want socialism, we don't mean state management of the economy.
Then you're not using it by its proper definition. The whole point of language is to be understood by others. That means you need to use these words based on their common meaning, in this case coming from hundreds of years of political philosophy.
For Libertarian Socialists, socialism is an economic system in which the means of production, so factories, farms, offices, etc., are owned and managed not by the state, but by the workers themselves.
And here's another equivocation fallacy. What does the workers themselves mean? Funny how it never seems to include the owners and executives of the business, even though they generally put far more into the business than the workers themselves.
We want worker self-management of industry through direct democratic, non-hierarchical federations.
And what happens when someone sets up a factory or whatever that isn't owned and managed by the workers? There are only two possibilities. You're either going to use force to make them do things your way, or you aren't. If you are, then it's state-controlled. If you're not, then you're actually a capitalist, not a socialist, because you respect the private property of others, whereas in socialist philosophy, private property is theft and exploitation. It's either one or the other, and this is the very dichotomy people like you try to avoid, because you're deliberately trying to hide the violence that your system requires.
As in the Spanish Revolution of 1936.
Yeah, because that worked out so well, didn't it?
For Libertarian Socialists, libertarianism refers to a generalized skepticism towards authority and social hierarchy.
Just what exactly is you people's problem with hierarchy? As long as people organize voluntarily into a hierarchy, what's the big deal? People do this all the time. Clubs and other organizations that have chairs and vice chairs or presidents or whatever. You just lump that in with state authority, which is where these things are imposed by force. So another equivocation fallacy. If you're not an anarcho-capitalist, then by definition, you believe the initiation of force is justified in certain scenarios, and this is yours. People voluntarily form these organizations and businesses, and your system is going to use force to stop them. That makes your system a state. Deal with it.
We favor direct democracy.
In other words, tyranny of the majority running roughshod over the minority. The 51% can do whatever they want to the 49%. Again, this has not worked out so great in the past.
So what does libertarian socialism mean in a nutshell? Well, we view both corporate capitalism.
No such thing. This is yet another equivocation fallacy you people love doing. Corporatism is diametrically opposed to capitalism because it requires force to provide subsidies and regulations favoring certain businesses and industries over others.
We reject the capitalist system, and we also reject the state.
You cannot do both. To reject capitalism means that you want to interfere in voluntary transactions between peaceful people, because that's all capitalism is. To do that, you must initiate force on these people, which means you're forming a state. There really is no way around this.
The socialist component is that we believe that workplaces ought to be managed and owned by the workers themselves.
Well, you can believe that all you want, but what happens when other people who don't agree with you start doing things differently? Again, you have only two options. Respect their private property and be a capitalist, or use force against them and be a state. There is no third option here.
The word libertarian was first used in a political sense by French philosopher and anarcho-communist Joseph de Jacques.
Lie, 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 lie. De Jacques didn't use that word until 1858. And even then, he was speaking French, and the word wasn't actually libertarian, it was libertaire. Although the word libertarian existed much earlier philosophically to describe proponents of free will, it was first used in a political sense in 1796. In English, when the London Packet used the word to refer to individualist anarchists in France. Its modern political use dates to an 1802 article in the British Critic. It was you people who co-opted the term for your own purposes.
Murray Rothbard openly acknowledges the fact that libertarianism was originally a leftist phenomenon.
Just because Rothbard was taken in by the lies you people tell doesn't make it to be true. We have documented evidence of the word in the individualist capitalist sense existing for decades before you people used it. So, thanks for an argument from authority. This just exposes your true authoritarian nature.
We still use the word socialist to describe our economics because, well, that's what they are. Workers' control is a form of common ownership.
And is forced on people, using violence if necessary. Amazing how you keep leaving out this vital aspect of it.
The word socialism has come to mean varying degrees of state management of the economy, despite the fact that non-state forms of socialism do exist.
Again, if you're not using the state, you're not using violence. If you're not using violence, you're respecting private property. If you're respecting private property, you are a capitalist. It's telling how you keep hiding the very core of your philosophy, that private property is evil and must be opposed by force.
The problem is, and the reason for all of these misunderstandings, is that it's just not talked about, because numerous authoritarian institutions, such as the nation-state and private corporations, see it as being a threat to their authority, and thus will do everything they can to suppress it.
No, it's because morons like you have no idea what you're talking about. You're either deliberately lying to cover up the evil of your philosophy, or you're spreading lies told by others without bothering to research it yourself. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit like and subscribe? And to make sure I can keep producing content, support this channel by becoming a patron. And check out all the other great content here, like this video selected especially for you.